What it do, comic babies? I'm Bunk Mastaby, and today we're still talking about Ben Templesmith. Fell's great. Fell's amazing. But Ben's done so many amazing books, I want to keep the celebration train rolling. So last time, we talked about Fell, my favorite series by Ben. This time, we're talking about 10 Grand. So 10 Grand was an Image Comics series that came out about 10 or so years ago, where the first 4 issues were drawn by... Did I hit? Nope, there he is. Ben Templesmith. And written by J. Michael Straczynski. Yeah, JMS did this. Did you know about that? I mean, obviously I did, because I'm the one talking about it here. But yeah, JMS of Midnight Nation, Squadron Supreme? Squadron Supreme? He did the Supreme Power follow-up to Squadron Supreme. Amazing Thor run, Spider-Man. I mean, just heavyweight. Babylon 5. Yeah, he wrote a book with Ben Templesmith, and this book is awesome. So this is a book, basically about the interplay of forces of heaven versus the forces of hell, and one man who gets kind of trapped in the middle. It's a story of the supernatural. It's a story of demons. Some of my favorite work Ben's done has come from this book. You get some really grotesque stuff going on, and all the while, it's just a really cool story. Let's check it out. So 10 Grand. J. Michael Straczynski, Ben Templesmith, and C.P. Smith. And the reason that there's 2 artists on this, Ben starts off the first 4 issues, and then there's a transition that happens in the artist change. And Ben left the book after those first 4 issues, but they do a pretty clever thing as far as incorporating how those styles are different. I thought that they did a pretty interesting job. But we start the book out with Joe, as you can see, our main character. And gets a flashback of Laura. In my dreams, Laura's beautiful. She's always beautiful. And we find out, then I remember, I can't talk to her. Not like this. Not while I'm alive. And what we find out through the book is that Laura's dead. Laura is in heaven. And by doing his good work on Earth, every time that Joe dies, he is given 5 minutes that he gets to see his wife, Laura. And so on Earth, he goes in Lenny's, and he fixes very particular problems for people that don't have anywhere else to go. And he charges the titular 10 grand for it. Why 10 grand? Because 10,000 is a lot of money. No, it's not. 100 grand is a lot of money. More than that is a lot of money. 10 grand is just enough to weed out the kooks, the clowns, the wackos, the phoebes, the creeps, the game players, here it is. So it's basically just the, how serious are you? And this character shows up looking for her sister Sarah, who started in this up with this group called Divine Will, and kind of checked out on her family. But the police all said she was a transient, said that it was good that she's gone, and it's better off. So she goes to Joe. And she shows a picture of the person that her sister had been seeing there at the Divine Will meetings. And she says, she did not see this guy. Sorry, Joe, but I saw him too. He's there right now running the place. You did not see this guy because I put a bullet in this guy's head 2 years ago. And one of the reasons why this series is so special to me is I have an awful lot of 10 grand original pages. This is one of my favorite series that Ben has done. And this is right here probably my single favorite page. You get this really cool splash page of Joe coming on this guy surrounded by demon circles. This was the first page I ever owned. And Joe's got just such a silly, silly face there. And then Joe ends up taking the case for free because this is of special importance to him now. And then this is where we get to that page that I showed before. Before Joe had ever died, he came down and encountered this gentleman here. And this is where we start getting the connection to the supernatural. Joe starts looking into this divine will, and he sees this. He ends up then hacking in the language of the angels and ends up finding quite a bit more. Someone finds him there, blows up the coffee house that he's at. And it starts off with this story of the fight between heaven and hell, and Joe being caught in the middle with no real interest in either side. Joe ultimately, he's just there for him. He's just there to get back with Laura. We get a lot of twists and turns going in this one. This is when in issue 2 he actually goes into divine will, and we get up seeing this guy right here, a Fleshus, which is basically a demon that is inhabiting a human's a body and just gets big and grotesque like this. Love these guys right here. But if you're into, kind of the Shin Megami Tensei sort of thing, if you're into demonology, if you're into the occult, if you're into kind of crime horror stories, that touch on the supernatural, this is definitely a series I think that you'll like. We start off here on the human plane. We get to see heaven. We go to hell. There's a fight that culminates there. The series is 12 issues. You can pick it up in 2 trades, or you can probably find the original issues. They shouldn't be too hard to find, but this is an awesome, awesome story, and I definitely think you guys should check it out.
So that's it, guys. That's 10 grand. So I know this is one of both Ben and JMS's lesser-known series. Obviously, JMS has had a wealth of stories. He's one of the big names that's in there, and Ben is mostly known for 30 Days of Night, but this is definitely a project I'm a big fan of. But one thing I wanted to do before this ended is show off what actually comes next. So I think I mentioned that Ben does the art for the first 4 issues, and then C.P. Smith actually takes over. And while this is not a video about him, it is a book about 10 grand, and of the 12 issues that came out, C.P. Smith was the artist on 8 of them. So, I mean, he has a real claim to being the series artist. So, one thing I just wanted to show, style very, very different from Ben's. Like, if you take a look right here, this is Ben doing the cover right here. And then this is C.P. Smith. And you can see that there's this sort of computer-generated look to it. I think that's just the colors. I don't actually know if CP did work on this digitally. I would assume so, looking at it, but I don't know that for sure. And there's an in-universe explanation for why the art is different. And I think it's pretty clever the way that they did that. It kind of reminds me a little bit of how in Strange Adventures by Tom King, he had both the artists Doc Shaner and Mitch Gerards working on different section of the book, and depending on whether it was taking place in Ren or whether it was taking place on Earth would depend on which artist was doing that there. And Ben left the book. It wasn't the original plan. But I thought the way that they did it lent itself to a pretty good explanation. And you can see we still get a lot of kind of the same sort of action that we get from the beginning. We get that same kind of interplay of good and evil and man stuck in the middle, and the forces of heaven, while being all good and benevolent, don't really have a place for human free will. And when there is someone like Joe in this book, who is a human, and he's sort of caught between the forces of heaven and hell, that's kind of what he has to go there. The pure chaos, the sort of purest form of free will, the sort of rule by the strongest that you have there with the forces of hell versus just the pure order, God's law, forces of heaven. And that's the kind of stuff that I loved. I think I mentioned the series Shin Megami Tensei earlier. Kind of that demonology. I've always been a big fan of that, and this series really scratched that itch. So if you, like me, are kind of into those sort of grand themes of heaven versus hell and man caught in the middle, of demonology, of just sort of, stories of love conquering all, I highly suggest you check this out. I'm a big fan of this, clearly. I think you will be too. I mean, if nothing else, it's JMS writing. Do you really need more than that? I don't think so. But you get more than that. You get that great Ben art. You get that C.P. Smith art. What more could you ask for? But I do want to hear. Does this sound like this might be something that's up your alley? Have you read it before? Were you reading it back in the day when the single issues came out? It's out of print now, I'm pretty sure. It's not a hugely popular series, and it came out about 10 years or so ago. But you can find the two trades that make this up pretty easily. I don't think it should be hard at all. So let me know. But with that, I've been Bunkmaster B. You all have been amazing. Catch you next time.